The restaurant was one of those places where they don't list prices on the menu. The kind of establishment that assumes if you're asking you can't afford it. Lou Bernardine in Manhattan. Mom's 60th birthday. My sister Rebecca had insisted on choosing the venue. It's Mom's special day, Rebecca had announced 3 weeks ago during our family video call. Somewhere elegant. Somewhere worthy of the occasion. I'll handle the reservation. What she'd really meant was, somewhere expensive enough that I'd feel uncomfortable. Somewhere she could remind everyone that she was the successful one. I sat at the corner of the table wearing the same navy blazer I'd owned for 6 years. Around me, my family sparkled in designer labels and custom tailoring. Rebecca wore a Prada dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her husband, Trevor, had matching Tom Ford cufflinks and watch. Even my younger brother Mark had shown up in a Hugo Boss suit. I looked like I'd walked out of a J.Crew catalog from 2018. Which was exactly the image I'd cultivated for the past 7 years. So, little brother, Rebecca said as the second bottle of wine arrived, a $400 Bordeaux that Trevor had selected with performative expertise. Still doing your internet thing? The table went quiet. It was a familiar pause, the kind that preceded Rebecca's carefully crafted humiliations. Yes, I said simply. Still doing that. Daniel runs a successful online business. Mom interjected hopefully. My mother, ever the peacemaker trying to defend me with words she didn't really understand. Rebecca's laugh was crystalline and cutting. Mom, stop. It's sweet that you're supportive, but let's be realistic. She turned to me, her expression a perfect blend of pity and condescension. How much are you actually making from your little blog or whatever it is? It's not a blog, I said calmly. It's an investment and venture capital firm. Trevor snorted into his wine. A venture capital firm. That's adorable. Rebecca, did you hear that? Your baby brother thinks he's running a VC firm. Rebecca patted my hand in a gesture that made me feel like I was 8 years old again. Danny, there's no shame in admitting you're still figuring things out. You're what, 27? Most people your age are still entry-level somewhere. The fact that you're trying entrepreneurship it's cute. I'm 28, I corrected quietly. Right, 28. Still so young. She sipped her wine. Trevor and I were talking, and if you need help we might be able to get you an interview at my company. Maybe something in operations? Or assistant to one of the junior project managers. My sister was 33. She'd graduated from Wharton 5 years ago and immediately joined a tech startup called Neural Edge, a machine learning platform for enterprise clients. Her MBA and connections had landed her a VP of business development role, and she'd spent the past 5 years making sure everyone knew about her success. Neural Edge had raised $380 million across 3 funding rounds. Rebecca had been featured in Forbes 30 Under 30. She spoke at conferences. She posted on LinkedIn constantly about disruption and innovation and scaling. She had no idea that I'd been her company's largest investor since Series A. That's generous, I said, cutting into my $75 Dover sole. But I'm happy with my current work. Mark jumped in, younger brother solidarity evaporating the moment Rebecca gave him an approving look. Come on, Dan. Mom said you're still living in that studio apartment in Queens. When are you going to get serious about your career? I like my apartment, I replied. It was true. The 600-square-foot studio near Astoria Park cost me $1,800 a month and was walking distance to the subway. Perfect cover for someone managing a $680 million investment portfolio. You like it because you can't afford anything better, Rebecca said. Which is fine. Not everyone can be high earners. Some people are just more practical. Trevor leaned forward, clearly enjoying himself. Rebecca told me you asked to borrow money for rent last year? I had $1,200 in March 2024, when I was deliberately living lean while allocating capital to 3 new portfolio companies. I'd paid Rebecca back within 2 weeks, but she'd never let me forget it. I paid you back, I said quietly. Of course you did. I'm not saying you're irresponsible. I'm saying you're clearly struggling. Rebecca's voice dripped with false concern. And there's no shame in that. The gig economy is tough. Internet businesses rarely work out. Mom tried again. Rebecca, Daniel is doing fine. He seems happy. Mom, I love you, but you don't understand business. Rebecca set down her fork with the air of someone about to deliver uncomfortable truth. Danny's been building his internet business for 7 years. 7 years. If it was actually successful, we'd see results by now. Real businesses scale. They generate revenue. They create wealth. She gestured around the table. Look at us. Trevor's a partner at his law firm. Mark just made VP at Goldman. I'm running business development for a company valued at over $1 billion. We're contributing to the economy. We're building real things. And Danny's. Trevor paused theatrically. What exactly do you do again? I identify promising startups and provide capital in exchange for equity, I said, keeping my voice level. Then I help them scale. Rebecca actually laughed out loud. With what capital? Danny, you borrowed $1,200 from me for rent. How are you investing in anything? The waiter arrived with desserts. Creme brulee, chocolate soufflé, a cheese course. Another $200 on the tab that Trevor made a show of covering. This is on us, Rebecca announced. Happy birthday, Mom. And don't worry about contributing, Danny. We know money's tight. It was the casual dismissal that finally triggered my decision. Not the mockery, I'd endured that for years. Not the condescension, I'd built immunity to that. It was the assumption that I couldn't even afford to split a dinner bill. I pulled out my phone under the table and opened Signal, my encrypted messaging app for sensitive communications. My investment team consisted of 3 people. Sarah Chin, my portfolio manager at Apex Capital Partners. James Rodriguez, my legal counsel specializing in VC contracts. And Patricia Walsh, my financial advisor who handled the complex web of investment vehicles I'd built over 7 years. I opened a group chat. Daniel. Emergency liquidation required. Neural Edge complete withdrawal. All positions across entities. Timeline. Immediate. The response came within seconds. Sarah. Confirming full Neural Edge exit? That's $152 million across 4 entities. Daniel. Confirmed. Execute now. Patricia. This will trigger disclosure requirements. Board will be notified within 20 minutes. Daniel. Understood. Proceed. James. Legal review underway. We'll have documents ready within the hour. I set my phone face down on the table and returned my attention to the dessert I wasn't eating. Rebecca was telling a story about her latest client acquisition, a Fortune 500 company that had chosen Neural Edge over 3 competitors. She gestured expressively, her diamond bracelet catching the candlelight. The deal was worth $8 million annually, she said. Can you imagine? $8 million. That's what real business looks like. That's what happens when you play in the major leagues. Impressive, I murmured. It is impressive, Trevor agreed. Unlike some people, Rebecca actually understands how to generate value in the marketplace. My phone buzzed. I glanced down. Sarah. Series A liquidation initiated. $47 million processing. Patricia. Entity disclosures filed. Board notification sent. James. Series B withdrawal confirmed. $58 million transferred. Rebecca's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, frowning. It's Brad from the board. That's weird, it's Saturday night. Answer it, Trevor suggested. Might be important. She excused herself from the table, phone pressed to her ear as she walked toward the restaurant's entrance. Mark filled the silence. So Dan, seriously, what's your 5-year plan? You can't do this internet thing forever. Why not? I asked. Because it's not sustainable. You need stability. Benefits. A 401k. You need to join the real world. The real world, I repeated. You know what I mean. Corporate America. Actual companies with actual structure. What you're doing is it's playing pretend. My phone buzzed again. Sarah. Series C liquidation complete. $47 million transferred. Total withdrawn. $152 million. Patricia. Neural Edge board has been notified. Kyo is being briefed. James. All positions cleared. 0 remaining equity in Neural Edge across all entities. Through the restaurant's floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see Rebecca pacing on the sidewalk, her free hand gesturing wildly as she talked on the phone. Even from inside, I could see the color draining from her face. Trevor's phone rang next. Then Mark's. Then surprisingly Mom's. What in the world? Mom said, looking at her screen. It's Rebecca calling me. But she's right outside. Trevor answered his phone. Babe, what's going on? We couldn't hear Rebecca's response, but we watched Trevor's expression transform from confused to shocked to horrified in the span of 10 seconds. That's impossible, he said into the phone. There must be a mistake. Hold on, I'm coming out. He practically ran to the door. Mark's phone continued ringing. A call from Rebecca that he answered with growing confusion. Sis? Wait, slow down. What do you mean liquidation? I sat quietly, finishing my water. Mom looked at me with worried eyes. Daniel, do you know what's happening? I might, I said softly. Through the windows, I watched Rebecca's animated conversation with Trevor. She was pointing at her phone, then at the restaurant, then back at her phone. Trevor had his hands in his hair, his carefully styled $200 haircut hair. Mark ended his call. Something's wrong with Rebecca's company. Some major investor just pulled out. Like, catastrophically pulled out. How catastrophic? Mom asked. She said $150 million. She said it might tank their entire Series D funding round. Mark's face was pale. She said the board is having an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. Rebecca and Trevor burst back into the restaurant. Rebecca's perfect makeup was smudged, she'd been crying. Trevor looked like he'd seen a ghost. We need to go, Rebecca announced. Emergency. I'm so sorry, Mom. I have to deal with this. What happened? Mom stood, reaching for her daughter. Our largest investor just liquidated every single share. $152 million. Gone. Just gone. Rebecca's voice was shaking. The board is panicking. Our CEO is on a plane back from Tokyo. The Series D investors are spooked. This could destroy everything. Who was the investor? I asked quietly. Rebecca turned to me, mascara running. Some group called Apex Capital Partners. We've never even met them. They've been completely passive for 4 years. And now, out of nowhere, they're pulling everything. Apex Capital Partners, I repeated. They were our anchor investor. Series A, Series B, Series C, they were in every round. They owned 22% of the company. And now they're just gone. Trevor was scrolling through his phone frantically. The investor was spread across 4 different entities. Delta Ventures, Epsilon Holdings, Zeta Capital and Sigma Equity. All managed by Apex. Those were my entities. The same structure I'd used for Morrison Industries. The same careful separation that kept my identity hidden while allowing me to deploy capital strategically. Why would they pull out? Mom asked. No explanation, Rebecca said. Just a formal liquidation notice filed with the SEC 20 minutes ago. The board got an automated notification. No warning. No discussion. Just gone. Mark was reading something on his phone. Holy shit. This is already hitting Twitter. Someone leaked it. Breaking. Neural Edge loses $152 million anchor investor. Series D funding in jeopardy. Rebecca sank into her chair. This will kill the Series D. We were closing a $200 million round next month. But if our anchor investor just fled, no one else will touch us. They'll think we're hiding problems. They'll think the company is failing. Is the company failing? I asked. No. We're growing 40% year over year. We just signed 3 major clients. Our technology is solid. We're profitable. Her voice cracked. But it doesn't matter. In venture capital, perception is reality. If Apex thinks we're a bad bet, everyone else will too. Trevor was making calls, his voice low and urgent as he stepped away from the table. Rebecca looked at me, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Danny. I know I was being mean earlier. I'm stressed and I took it out on you. I'm sorry. It was the same apology she always gave after humiliating me. Quick, superficial, designed to make her feel better rather than address the actual problem. It's okay, I said automatically. It's not okay, Mom said firmly. Rebecca, you were horrible to your brother. You've been horrible to him for years. Mom, not now. Yes, now. Mom's voice had steel in it. Your brother has never been anything but supportive of you. And you treat him like he's an embarrassment. Rebecca wiped her eyes. I know. You're right. I'll do better. I promise. She grabbed her purse. But right now I need to deal with this crisis. My entire career is imploding. My phone buzzed. Sarah. Neural Edge stock price down 18% in after-hours trading. News spreading fast. Patricia, 3 Series D investors have already pulled out. $60 million withdrawn from the round. James, CEO has requested emergency meeting with Apex. Wants to understand the withdrawal. I looked at Rebecca's tear-stained face. At Trevor's panicked expression. At Mark's shocked silence. 7 years of careful planning. 7 years of building a $680 million portfolio while living in a Queen studio apartment and wearing the same blazer to family dinners. 7 years of enduring condescension and mockery while secretly funding the very company my sister used as evidence of her superiority. Rebecca, I said quietly. Do you want to know why Apex pulled out? She turned to me desperate. Do you know something? Did you hear something? Your internet business stuff. Do you know people in VC? I know a few people, I said. Can you help? Can you make some calls? I know we don't have the best relationship, but you're my brother. If you know anyone who might invest or who might talk to Apex. I don't need to call Apex, I interrupted. I am Apex. The table went silent. Rebecca's expression cycled through confusion, disbelief, and then something approaching horror as she processed what I'd said. What? I pulled up my phone and opened the Apex Capital Partners dashboard. The same dashboard I'd shown Morrison Industries. The same comprehensive portfolio overview that detailed every investment, every entity, every dollar. Apex Capital Partners, principal investor Daniel Robert Chin, total assets under management, $680,447,332. Recent transaction. Neural Edge Incorporated complete liquidation. Delta Ventures LLC, $47,200,000. Epsilon Holdings LP, $58,100,000. Zeta Capital Partners, $31,500,000. Sigma Equity Group, $15,200,000 total withdrawal. $152 million status. Complete. I connected my phone to the restaurant's display screen. The same screen they'd been using to show photos of Mom throughout the evening. The portfolio filled the wall-sized display. Rebecca stood slowly, walking toward the screen as if in a trance. That says your name. Yes. But that's not possible. You asked me for rent money. I borrowed $1,200 as a test, I said calmly. I wanted to see if you'd lord it over me. You did. Trevor was staring at the display. You have $680 million? Give or take, I said. The crypto holdings fluctuate significantly. Mark's voice was barely a whisper. You were Neural Edge's largest investor? Since Series 4 years ago, Rebecca came to me, not knowing who I was, and told me about this exciting startup she'd just joined. She said they were raising $50 million. She said it was a great opportunity for real investors. I pulled up the Series A documents. I invested $47.2 million through Delta Ventures. When you raised Series B, I added $58.1 million through Epsilon. Series C, another $31.5 million through Zeta. And when you needed emergency bridge financing during the pandemic, I provided $15.2 million through Sigma. Rebecca had gone completely white. You've been funding my company for 4 years? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? For the same reason I didn't tell Morrison Industries, or the 17 other portfolio companies I've invested in. I pulled up my complete holdings list. Because I wanted to see if you'd value me for who I am, not what I have. The display now showed my full portfolio. Active investments. 23 portfolio companies. Total deployed capital. $445 million. Current valuation. $680 million. Average return. 52.7%. Rebecca was reading the list, her eyes widening with each line item. You invested in Stripe? Notion? And, oh my God, you were in the Figma round before the Adobe acquisition? Early investor. Made $43 million on the exit. Trevor collapsed into his chair. How is this possible? How does someone living in Queens with a used Honda Civic have $680 million? I started at 21. I explained. Sold my first company, an AI platform for content moderation, to Facebook for $18 million. Invested most of it in early-stage startups. Bitcoin position in 2013 returned 4,000%. Ethereum in 2015 returned 1,200%. Made smart bets on emerging technologies. Compounded returns. I pulled up my transaction history. At 22 I was managing $50 million. At 24, $200 million. By 26 I crossed $500 million. I'm 28 now and I run one of the most successful micro VC firms in North America. Mom had tears in her eyes, but for a different reason than Rebecca. Danny, why didn't you tell us? Because I wanted you to love me for me, I said simply. Not for the money. And I wanted to see if my family would respect my work based on its merits, not my bank balance. I looked at Rebecca. You've spent 7 years telling me my internet business was fake. That I was playing pretend. That I needed to get a real job. All while I was funding the company you used as proof of your success. Rebecca's voice broke. Danny, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, I corrected. I invited you to my office 3 times. You said you were too busy. I sent you articles about my investments. You never read them. I tried to explain what I did. You interrupted to give me career advice. Mark was scrolling through my portfolio with shaking hands. You have positions in 47 companies. The combined valuation is, Jesus, if even half these reach exit, you'll be worth billions. Probably, I agreed. The pipeline is strong. Trevor found his voice. So when you withdrew from Neural Edge? I withdrew $152 million from a company whose VP of Business Development told me tonight that I was playing pretend. That I needed to get serious about my career. That I couldn't even afford dinner at a nice restaurant. Rebecca was sobbing openly now. I'll apologize. I'll make it right. Please, Danny, you can't destroy my company over this. I'm not destroying anything, I said, echoing what I'd told Morrison Industries. I'm removing my capital from a company whose leadership demonstrated that they evaluate people based on surface appearances rather than actual competence. But I didn't know. Rebecca protested. Exactly, I said. You didn't know and you treated me like garbage anyway. What does that say about how you evaluate people? If I'm worthless when you think I'm broke but valuable when you know I'm rich, your entire value system is broken. My phone buzzed with another message from Sarah. Sarah, Series D collapse confirmed. $140 million withdrawn by investors. Neural Edge valuation cut from $1.1 billion to $650 million. CO requesting urgent call. I showed Rebecca the message. She read it and made a sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. That's a 45% valuation cut. Our stock options are worthless now. The company might not survive. It might not, I agreed. That's what happens when your anchor investor loses confidence. But you didn't lose confidence in the company, Trevor said slowly, understanding dawning. You lost confidence in the leadership. Specifically, in the person who spent 4 years convincing me that my contribution was worthless while living off my investment returns. Rebecca had sunk to the floor, her Prada dress pooling around her. What do I do? How do I fix this? You can't, I said. The SEC filings are public. The liquidation is complete. My capital has already been reallocated to companies whose leadership treats people with respect regardless of their perceived status. Mark was still staring at the portfolio display. Where did it go? The $152 million. I pulled up my recent allocation decisions. I split it across 4 new investments. A biotech startup founded by a former janitor who taught himself molecular biology. An AI company led by a community college dropout. A renewable energy firm started by 3 women who couldn't get funding from traditional VCs. And a logistics platform built by a warehouse worker who spent 10 years learning supply chains from the ground up. People like you, Mom said softly. People who were underestimated, I corrected. People who built something real despite everyone telling them they weren't qualified. People who proved that competence isn't about credentials, it's about execution. Rebecca was making phone calls now, frantic conversations with board members and investors. Trevor had joined her, both of them huddled in the corner trying to salvage what they could. Mark sat across from me, his expression shell-shocked. I can't believe you lived like this. The apartment, the clothes, the borrowed rent money, all while managing $680 million. It was necessary, I explained. If people knew, they'd treat me differently. They'd want things from me. They'd see the money instead of me. This way I got to see who people really were. And we failed the test. Spectacularly. Mom reached across the table and took my hand. I'm proud of you. I always have been, even when I didn't understand what you were doing. But Danny, you should have told us. Not because of the money, but because you're our family. We should have known you were struggling with how we treated you. I wasn't struggling, I said. I was observing. And learning. And building something that didn't require your approval. Rebecca returned to the table, her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline. The CEO wants to meet with you. He's willing to fly anywhere. He'll give you board seats, advisory position, whatever you want. Just please reconsider. I don't want board seats, I said. I want you to understand something fundamental about business and about people. You can't tell someone they're worthless and then expect them to save you when you realize they're valuable. That's not how respect works. I know, and I'm sorry. I'll do anything. Will you? I interrupted. Tomorrow morning your company will open 40% lower. Your employees will panic. Some will quit. Your competitors will smell blood. You'll spend the next year rebuilding credibility you shouldn't have lost. I stood up, pulling out my wallet to leave cash for my untouched dessert. And through all of that, I want you to remember, the person you dismissed as a failure, the person you mocked for his internet business, the person you offered to get an entry-level job interview, that person funded your entire career. Your Forbes feature, your conference speeches, your LinkedIn posts about disruption and innovation, all built on capital from someone you considered beneath you. Rebecca was crying too hard to respond. Trevor tried instead. Danny, be reasonable. Rebecca made mistakes, but you're destroying dozens of lives. Neural Edge has 200 employees. They'll lose their jobs if the company fails. Then Rebecca should have thought about those 200 employees before she decided to spend dinner humiliating the person who kept their salaries funded. I picked up my jacket. I'm responsible for my investment decisions. Rebecca is responsible for her leadership decisions. Actions have consequences. Mark stood abruptly. Wait, I was part of this too. I mocked you. I told you to get serious. I'm sorry. What can I do? Nothing, I said. You can do nothing. That's the point. For 7 years you could have asked about my work. You could have shown interest. You could have treated me with basic respect. You chose not to. Now the opportunity is gone. Mom walked me to the door. Will you come to Sunday dinner next week? I'm moving to Palo Alto on Wednesday, I said. I'm opening a physical office for Apex. I have 17 portfolio companies that need hands-on support. You're leaving New York? It's time. I've learned everything I needed to learn here. She hugged me tightly. Call me, please. Regardless of everything else, call your mother. I will, I promised. And I meant it. Mom had been ignorant, not malicious. She defended me in her limited way. She deserved more than radio silence. Rebecca caught up to us at the door. Danny, please. I'm begging you. Not for me, for the employees. For the company. They don't deserve to suffer because I was a terrible sister. You're right, I said. They don't deserve it. Which is why you should have been a better leader. A better sister. A better person. I handed her a business card. My real one with Apex Capital Partners printed in embossed letters. If you want to understand what happened tonight, really understand it, think about this. I've been in your board meetings for 4 years. Every quarterly presentation. Every strategic planning session. Every financial review. I was there, participating through my representatives, providing input that shaped your company's direction. Rebecca stared at the card. But at family dinners you wouldn't let me speak. You interrupted when I tried to explain my work. You dismissed my opinions. You treated input from a $680 million investor as worthless because you thought that investor was your broke little brother. I opened the restaurant door. That's not just bad sibling behavior. That's bad business. And I don't invest in bad business. I left her standing in the doorway, the card still in her hand. My phone buzzed as I walked toward the subway. Sarah, 4 new term sheets ready for your review. Total deployment, $165 million. Patricia, portfolio rebalancing complete. Apex position strengthened. James, legal review of new investments complete. Ready to proceed. I texted back. Proceed with all 4. Send final documents to my new Palo Alto address. The subway platform was quiet for a Saturday night. I sat on a bench watching trains come and go, thinking about 7 years of careful observation and strategic patience. My phone rang. I answered. The board wants to know what it would take, she said, her voice hoarse from crying. To get you to reconsider. Name your price. There is no price, I said. This isn't a negotiation. Then what is it? A lesson, I said. For you, for Trevor, for Mark. For every person who thinks they can measure someone's worth by their apartment size or their car or their clothes. For everyone who mistakes quiet observation for incompetence. I learned the lesson, she whispered. I swear I learned it. Good, I said. Then apply it to how you treat your employees. To how you evaluate candidates. To how you judge people. Because the next person you dismiss might not be as patient as I was. They might not spend 7 years giving you chances. They might just walk away immediately. Danny. I have to go, I said. My train is here. I ended the call. The train pulled into the station. I boarded, finding a seat by the window. Around me, New York City sparkled with Saturday night energy. Couples heading to shows, friends meeting for drinks, the endless churning activity of 8 million people pursuing 8 million dreams. I'd been one of those dreamers once. The kid in Queens with a laptop and ambition, building companies while his family mocked his internet business. Now I was something else. Something that didn't fit in their world anymore. My phone buzzed one final time. Sarah. Neural Edge final update, CEO stepping down. Board requesting emergency restructuring. Company future uncertain. I closed the notification. Rebecca had spent 4 years standing on a foundation I'd built, never once looking down to see what supported her success. Now that foundation was gone and she was discovering exactly how far the fall could be. Some people would call this revenge. I called it mathematics. You can't build a sustainable company on contempt for the people who fund it. You can't build a sustainable family on contempt for the people who compose it. And you definitely can't expect someone to save you after spending 7 years telling them they're not worth saving. The train crossed into Queens and I watched Manhattan recede into the distance. The city where I'd built an empire that nobody saw, where I'd proven myself to everyone except the people whose approval I'd wanted most. But I didn't need their approval anymore. I had 17 portfolio companies for new investments, and an entire career ahead of me surrounded by people who recognized talent when they saw it. The warehouse worker had become a kingmaker. The internet business had changed industries. The family embarrassment had funded his sister's entire career.